The next stage of the ETL process is the transformation stage. The basic transformation tasks are really business rules applied to this particular stage of the ETL process. If we want to include only the data with certain characteristics, such as married or single customers, but not the ones for which we do not know the marital status, we are applying a particular selection/filter business rule. If we want to get the customer data from both sales and billing, we need to create a rule on how to go about this. If we want to decode FR, SH, JR, and SR students as freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, we have to decide on that particular conversion here as well. Summarizing university section enrollments into an enrollment table we discussed in class is also one of the basic transformation tasks. This slide continues with a list of typical transformation functions, such as decoding mentioned on the previous slide, as well as several others. Some of the third-party transformation tools are listed at the bottom, but here, just like with the extraction tools, most of them are bundled into ETL suites. In terms of implementation, the multi-stage approach has each transformation as a separate SQL operation, moving data from multiple temporary staging areas into ODS, or Operational Data Store, with pipelined approach performing transformation as the data is loaded into the warehouse. So some of the most common SQL transformations involve insert, update, delete, and merge, and can be as simple as the update statement shown at the bottom of the slide. The final step is to load the cleaned and transformed data into the warehouse data storage. As we already mentioned in the extraction discussion, we need to distinguish between the initial and subsequent or incremental loads. Since data loads often involve huge amounts of data being moved through the ETL system and into the warehouse, the specialized batch loading utilities perform these actions, often at night when the DWBI system can be quickly or temporarily taken offline. There is a bulk insert SQL command I used for daily load of CSV files with data recorded by data loggers. Those were triggered by the FTP server dropping a CSV file on the file server where the data was cleaned and transformed and then bulk loaded into the SQL Server data warehouse. The primary keys of the dimension tables are auto-generated numbers during the ETL process. The emphasis is on these keys being completely generic without any relationship to the production keys, used as primary keys in the operational tables. Production keys are often retained as attributes in the dimension tables, but are not used as surrogate keys because they can, albeit rarely, change and often have embedded business meaning. The last concept we discuss in this presentation is that of the dimensional attributes that slowly change over time, such as people's names, marital status, job rank, etc. There are several SCD types. See Kimball Chapter 5, pages roughly 148 through 152. We want to mention the first three. Type 0 is the original information, quote unquote. Since once the row is written into the dimensional table, it never changes. The type 1 is when we can overwrite the dimension attribute with new information, typically due to error correction or other minor changes. In this case, all values are simply overwritten, that is, they are not preserved. The type 2 is the one when we use when we want to preserve the history of a particular dimensional attribute. Say a customer recently got married, so her marital status needs to change to married as of a particular date. An additional row is inserted into the customer dimension table with completely new auto-generated surrogate key. All of the information is the same except the marital status is different. However, additional attributes are needed or added to the table. Again, see Kimball, top of page 151, indicating row effective and expiration dates as well as the current row indicator. We'll study and work with some of these examples in class. Finally, we conclude the presentation with a brief discussion on the SQL Server ecosystem. core platform. In addition to the SQL Server RDBMS, or Relational Database Management Systems, there are several supporting services, some of which we'll use in class and for the last assignment as well. SQL Server Management Studio, or SSMS, is like Toad for MySQL, just a client software used to connect to the SQL Server and run SQL queries. After you install SQL Server Data Tools, SSDT, not listed on this slide, we will use them to create few simple SQL Server Integration Services, or SSIS project, implementing few simple ETL processes in class and for the last assignment. This slide provides a visual on the SQL Server warehousing platform, with emphasis on the modeling, analysis, and reporting on the right, middle and the right of the slide, as well as extracting, and storing the data in the SQL Server based data warehouse. Finally, the last slide of the entire class. So in the preceding few videos, or two videos I suppose, we introduced the ETL process as the key piece of data warehouse implementation. We described, in I believe sufficient detail for the purposes of this class, each of the three sub-processes of extraction, transformation, and loading. We also touched briefly on the subject of surrogate keys and slowly changing dimensions. Finally, we discussed the major components of the SQL Server DWBI platform, and after you install SQL Server Data Tools on your computer, we will demonstrate the basics of data and control flow using SSIS projects, which are used to design and implement ETL process on the SQL Server platform.